Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, Mashonda Shines. All right, guys, we are back with part 2. I don't know about you guys, but I got lost in all the stories that Ian was saying because I was just like, what? Wait a minute. Then Coach Lloyd popped in, but I'm not ready to have this end because I think it's helping so many people. And the story is just so good and a good comeback story about what can happen when, one, you believe in yourself, two, you have a support team believing in you and helping you, but really just never giving up, no matter what the outcome may look like, what it may be. Like we're going to have bad races. If you race long enough, you're going to have bad races, right? But this, to me, as we turn into the mental part, I want to talk about that because you mentioned it twice in the episode on Wednesday. And so let's just jump right in. You were talking about how you didn't think you would, you're about to go into this headspace. So I'll let you just go ahead and start.
Yeah, no, I'm it's really it's a tough place to be. Um I began doubting myself, early into the illness and even into recovery of whether this is something I can do. Uh the I'm trying to think of where's a good because there's so much around it. There was a piece where um when I was being treated at the Mayo Clinic. So before every, whether it be medical, whatever you're seeing them for that particular appointment, you have to complete a mental wellness survey. And I thought, honestly, that it was just something they did, kind of tossed it aside because you're being seen by cardiology or pulmonary or whatever. But they were able to see that it was very consistent that I was um, very depressed. And this was their words. Um, so they connected me with a sports psychologist. And and they're cheering. I said, "Hey, this guy's the best in his field. We don't know if he's available, but we're gonna reach out to him because we think that it's very important that he sees you." And I tell you, Mashana, I said to him, and I smiled about it because he 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 kidded about it now that we talk about it. But I said to him, I said, I don't know what you're gonna tell me if I can't race, run, participate in marathons, triathlons. I said, there's nothing you're gonna tell me that's gonna make me feel better. But I went into it with an open mind. That I did, even though I didn't think anything. I was like, if you can't fix the root problem, I'm never gonna feel better. But needless to say, it helped tremendously. And I think this is why, as we spoke about in the last episode, it's that this is now why, for me, it's not as well, I'm not going to say it's not as serious because it is serious, but I'm able to laugh and smile at things that I wasn't previously. Us running, he said, the 16-minute miles, I'm laughing. I'm like, oh my goodness, what the heck are we doing out here? But it's all jokes to me. While I would be angry before, I'm like, I'm not, this is ridiculous. Um, but, I, one of the things that really hit home for me in one of our sessions, and this was so tough, is that um, it was in conversation. We got to the point where we made a column, and he said, "This is your family on the left, and on the right is your endurance life." And when we began populating all of the things, I realized that nothing was on the left where the family was. not my time, not my mental energy. There was nothing. Everything was so devoted to getting stronger, faster, better. Everything fell off. I mean, God, time spent with it, it, it was very real to look back and see that one side, here's your family. You got your wife, you have your kids, everything there. And you didn't have time because, you got to spend a time on the train, you got to spend a time on the road, you got to get this in the track work, all of this over here. Um, just events that you missed, all of this. But it really that I mean, like a baseball with a baseball bat, it just like boom, hit it. And at that point was when within myself I said, this has got to stop. The things that matter most to me, and I'm spending so it's like that saying from the Bible, it says, where your treasure is, there also is your heart. And then I realized that M dot emblem was where my treasure and my heart was. And even though I love it, I had to strike a balance. I'm like, no way. I love Iron Man. Yes, my heart's there, but it's also over here. Yeah, and I had refused to sacrifice God, time with my family. I mean, I skipped so many training sessions. I'm like, nope, whatever that result is over here, it's gonna happen because I am not doing that again. And I can see the difference this time around with my presence being with family. So, that with the mental aspect, it really was a positive result, I feel, for me, the outcome.
Wow, you mentioned striking a balance.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this time around you missed workouts because you wanted to fill the bucket to the left with your family.
Hmm.
How? Like, we hear the word balance being tossed around, but how did you strike a balance when training or needing to train upward to 15 hours a week, which can be seen as a part time job?
Hmm.
For people who might be listening, can you give practical ways in when you discovered this and how you struck this balance going into this training block for Ironman California?
Sure. So back when I was or just meaning only, not just that it was less than, but when I was focused entirely on running, that's all I did as a runner. And I was part of a running group. And these guys, I don't think they know, I don't think they have a slow button. They were always trying to get to the next level. And one, I believe it was one or a couple of people were saying, I'd love to come out and run with you guys, but you guys start so early. And one of the gentlemen that was kind of always leading the runs, he said, you will always find time for what matters to you. And that carried with me. And this was back in 2008. Um, I remember him saying that, and it stuck in my brain, and to this point, and that's exactly what I brought over. I said, you know what? Okay, these both matter to me. Iron Man does because I do love the sport. I love it. Um, but my family matters also. So, um, with w to answer your question, I said, all right, I know I need to get this training in. I need to get the time in. I need to get it. So one of two things is going to happen. I'm either going to train around um, family, so before they wake up or after they go to bed. Or if there are commitments in between, I worked around it. So, like for example, my youngest son, who's on the spectrum, he has therapies after school in the afternoons, about 40 minutes from here. And in the past, I would have just said, I'm sorry, I can't make these. Even though um it would be I would be wrestling with it, but I know that I would have ultimately have chosen to train because I got to get it in. Um, but now I or what I did for California was that I said, you know what? I'm not cutting any of that time out. So if it meant that I had to get on my trainer at 9 p.m. and ride until I was determined this time to make the sacrifice, me as opposed to them. So that means, yes, it would have been nice to have trained earlier and put my feet up at 9, 10 p.m. But I would have those rough conversations. I'm not doing it you know, I, and I would keep myself throughout those sessions. I would try to just keep myself mentally awake, even if I was feeling tired, just feeling like, hey, Ian, you got a 2 hour ride, you got a whatever it is, a 2.5, a 3 hour ride, and just kind of psych myself into this, um, just being like I'm looking forward to it, and I made this commitment. So in the software that we use or I use for the bike rides, when you start it up, it asks you a survey. How motivated do you feel today? And I used the answer truthfully. And I was like, you know what? Nope. I went to the right every time. Very excited or very motivated, whatever that one was on the right. And I said, yep. Even when I was dragging myself over and it says, how do you feel? And I said, yep, I am motivated because I feel that that was helping me. If I chose and said, yeah, I really don't want to be here or unmotivated, I think it would have sunk it in more. But by me choosing that and then clicking the start button, and just start. And what I found is that it was a more fulfilling. It was more because there was some guilt in the past. There were things that were happening and I didn't know, and I sometimes I was embarrassed because there would be conversations and where I should have, but I was absent, and things like that. But it was more. So I was just happier, even though I'm training late at night and I had trouble falling asleep because all that energy is there, and so your sleep is impacted. I would just figure a way to make it work. So the next morning, if I didn't feel like I could get up and do a swim or whatever, honestly, I didn't stress it. I didn't. I just said, you know, and some people would say that, this is cliche, but I was like, God's gonna work it out. he, he's not going to bring me this far for me to fail, and I just kept telling myself those words of affirmation, and I just yeah, and I would just skip that one, or I would push it, and I would push that swim to over lunch. So I would take my stuff to work, shoot over to the pool, get in, drive back to work, and just go from there, and then get home again, do the run or the ride, whatever it is. So I think it's just a matter of um, realizing what's important to you, and you find time, you choose your priorities.
Do you think working with a sports psychologist was the game changer in helping you to do a lot of reframing and redefining? And would you recommend that to athletes who might be experiencing um, depression at some degree?
It, it did. He had a lot of analogies that he would use. Um, and there was one where he asked me to take a, a tissue out of the box, out of the Kleenex box, and he said, when you grip it really tight, you hold it so tightly that you can't even see it. You lose sight of what that thing is because you have it all bundled in your fist so tightly. But he said, when you allow it to you release it a little bit. You can see, oh, you see the details, you can appreciate what it is. And sometimes we grasp on to these things so much because we feel like we can't lose this, and it just takes away the true appreciation and love for the sport. So working with a sports psychologist, um, it was indeed a game changer, um, for me, even though I wouldn't have admitted that up front, that it was beneficial because I viewed it, like I said, is that you got to solve the problem. That's the only way I'm going to be happy again. But it's a matter of perspective. Why are you in this sport? Um, what is it? What is it that you are? What is it that motivates you? What is it that drives you? Another one that people say, which is true, find your why. Why are you doing this? Is it because you want to stand on the podium? Is it that you enjoy being out here? Is it for bragging rights? What is it? What is your why for doing this sport? Um, and that was something that I realized that for me it was therapy because I was going through and had gone through so much, with my wife's illness. So it was this outlet. I felt very free out there.
Mhm.
Um, and as soon as I began to find that why for me, I was able to release of the other things. So what if I'm not you know, finishing in a daylight, daylight finishes and all of these things. It's just to be out here again, and be with like-minded folks, and then part of that, I'm getting that stress reliever, you know, of what's it called? The endorphins.
Endorphins. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Um, you mentioned about having guilt and embarrassment. How did you work through um, that period of having guilt and embarrassment because you didn't know what was happening with your family? And I don't know if that was guilt for some other reason as well, but how did you work through that? And how would you encourage someone else who might be having challenges, again, with that balance,
Yeah,
overcome the guilt?
sure. So, you know, I I am a firm believer that um you have to be. And I'm going to use these words only because I've said it to mostly, if not all men, but you have to be man enough to admit when you're wrong, when you made a mistake. Um, I find that it can do wonders, for the other person because they also are feeling, a certain way, and it can it's the return, it's immeasurable for them. So what I did, is that I actually apologized, and I don't know if she remembers that, but I to my wife, I realized what it was, and I want to say I think it might have been after that particular session with my sports psychologist. I thought about it. I think that night. Um, because it was all very vivid to me. All those times, I remember them because I never felt good about it, but it was in my mind, I'm like, this is a casualty. This just has to happen. It's like, hey, it, this is, this is non-negotiable. These rides, these runs, these swims, they have to happen. So I apologized, for that. I fell on my sword a lot, just, um, let go of any egos, any being proud, in any way, um, trying to save face. Because when you're wrong, you're wrong. When you've done something that requires for you to do right by that person, and by doing right is sometimes just letting them know that you understand that it was not the right thing to have done or the right decision, but I'm really sorry for this. And I'm going to do better. I see it now. I have a different lens that I'm looking through. And that's what I would say to someone else. I think the first step in getting through it, and some people may not accept it. And at that point, in my mind, I say, that is no, that's really them. I'm apologizing. I'm sharing openly. Um, and I am open to constructive criticism, from the other direction too. If they say, hey, but you've hurt me or whatever it may be, but I would say th that is the approach that I would share with others that are going through it. And whatever the situation is, it is, I think once you release that load, it opens your heart and your space to other things.
So now what? You've done Ironman, you've done Ironman California.
Uh,
Where are you on the mental spectrum? Because I hear and may have experienced the downer part of doing like this big race, getting this big goal, and now what?
I really, and this is, people think you're crazy, they'll think something is wrong with you because it's not normal, right? But I actually enjoy Ironman.
Mhm.
And I believe, like personally, I'm speaking from a personal place. I believe that it's because it parallels the journey that I've had. Not the one that I've shared here, but the medical journey started in 1999. And I would say that when I began doing Ironman, the first one, and even the long rides, how how much it was of my life as it was at that time. There were so many obstacles. It was, maybe that's why I'm a glutton for for punishment, because it mirrored having the health challenges, hearing the doctors say that um, she's not going to make it. They've brought me into the ICU room and they've cleared it and say, make your good, have your goodbyes with her because she's very sick, is what they would say, and we just want you to understand that she's very sick. They would say she's very ill, which really what they're telling you is that she's not going to live. She doesn't have much longer, and just being able to keep pushing and pushing. And there's a lot of mental pushing that we had, even the times where it was serious, but she wasn't, on the last where we weren't getting that. But it, there were just so many critical journeys, and that mental piece is where you're pushing. And I've had to tell her, I said, listen, we're gonna come out on the other side of this, okay? Because a lot of times it was bleak. She's had cancer, um, going through chemotherapy, and that positive mindset of knowing that you're not going to die. That I didn't, how do I know that? I don't know it, but it was just a mental place. And I believe this is why I love Iron Man, because when you're out there riding and you're out there for hours and everything is pushing against you, the wind, the hills, um, your mental state of whatever it's plaguing you at that time. Because when you're alone, there's no drafting, there's no blocking. So you're really alone. You can't ride and talk to anyone else. So you're alone with your thoughts and having to push through all those demons and everything, just to keep moving forward, knowing that this is sustainable. You just, and I say this to myself, I said, you just have to sustain to the end. This is not forever. That is actually a conversation I have with myself, even when I'm suffering out there. I said, this is not forever.
Mhm.
You just, Ian, there's a finish line. You just have to sustain to the end. So, because of my strange addiction to Iron Man, um, I, in time, I will be looking for another one. I have to work through some of the health things because I'm not in a perfect state again. So, one of the things after California, I had to do some tests. Uh, the folks at Mayo, they wanted to do some measurements of the ventricles, the left ventricle, just things like that to see the effect. They said there's no concern at that point. So now I have to work with the nephrology or the kidney folks, um, because there could be other complications or things that come about. So it's just really, as Lloyd was saying earlier, it's a bit different this time. I have to make sure that everything kind of kick the tires, make sure everything checks out well again with the body. Um, and after I hear and prayerfully hear that, you can move forward. I think I will look for another one that's uh I was gonna say affordable, but they're all kind of, not really affordable. But I may have to wait and find something. And the thing is, as you know, it's not yes, the sport, the registration is expensive, but when you talk about lodging and bike transport, this is something I never experienced with when I was a marathoner. I'd throw my shirt, my shorts, my shoes, my socks in my backpack, and I'd fly to like Chicago, whatever. That was like a $200 flight, run, a little cheap hotel. Now, oh my goodness,
And
this is
just think 7 years ago, the prices were definitely very different than they are now. So it's like, okay, let me press pause on this because this is getting
yes.
outrageous.
I'm wondering what
Um,
happened. What happened? I mean,
life.
because why is it that I'm seeing like I saw one the other day, it was like almost 900. When did it become this price?
I know which one you're talking about because it just came out. I know exactly which one you're talking about because I got that and was like, yo, you know what?
Yeah.
Just press the button.
When I left, they were 625 and 675. I'm like, when did it get to $900?
Yeah.
So
It, it, for
oh
those
man.
of you who are listening, obviously we encourage people to do all distances from the super sprint to Ironman to ultra, whatever it is that you want to do, recognizing that there are different cost variables at each level. So just be mindful of that. My question that I was going to ask Ian, because he kept saying that he was in love with the iron distance, is we know he started doing Nations Triathlon, which they had an Olympic and a sprint version. And then
Mhm.
from there, it's like he went straight to the iron distance.
Yeah.
So, what made you fall in love with the longer distances versus the shorter distances?
I believe it really sparked from running. So I didn't like 5Ks or like 10Ks. And it had nothing to do, feeling um that the long course or the long distance is better than another one. For me, I just could not take that because 5Ks are fast. And I did not like that burst to the heart rate, and you're just going because you generally race those pretty hard. And I mean, it's not that you have to, but I believed that I fell in love with the marathon distance because it was an escape for me
Mm,
from the medical impact that was going on in my life. And because it was very often, she would be 3 weeks in the hospital, 3 weeks out, 3 weeks in, 3 weeks out. That was pretty much the real rotation, not being, not exaggerating. So being out on the road those times that I could, it was like therapy. It just helped me a lot. So I love marathoning so much that because of that, so when I did nations, which was difficult as it was at the time, uh, I craved more. It was you know what? It was an escape for me. That's what it was. It was an escape. And I have to admit that Iron Man is an escape. You know, getting out there, on the course.
I just found out that escapism
Hmm.
is self-care.
Yes. Yes. Self-care.
I was in this I'm in this cohort, and they were asking me, "Well, Mashonda, how are you dealing with self-care?" And I was like, "Honestly, binge watching Madam Secretary." And they were like, "So you're using escapism?" And I was like, "I guess." And they're like, "That's a form of self-care to not deal with,
Mm,
any challenges at the time. You can come back to it, but just removing everything from your mind in order to put things back helps you to sort them out more systematically and pragmatically. Like
yes.
for me, I find it hard to not work. And so I'm like, let me escape. And then I
Right.
can come back and I'm better and doing things because I've taken that moment to just brain dump everything out in
Right.
order to bring it back up. So escapism is okay. And for those of you who are out there um, following this escapism, keep it up. Now deal with the problem ultimately, but it's okay to want to escape for a moment in order to come back and be a more fuller, better, wholer version of yourself. You mentioned some a. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to say that, and I've been using this a lot to your point exactly, is that you can't pour from an empty cup. So you have to allow your cup to be filled. And you know, I would use the term I was using with my psychologist was, I'm being selfish. I'm being selfish. And he said, Ian, that's not selfish, that's self-care. And my whole perspective, he said it enough to me that because I would believe that these times to myself, I'm being selfish. I could be caring, helping out, with my son or whatever it would be, that I would always find something that I should be doing, and he said, no, that's not being selfish. That's self-care. So I've learned to accept that even more. Yeah.
You mentioned some A's: acceptance, admittance,
Hmm.
appreciation, and apologizing.
Ah,
Welcome
yes.
to the A team, y'all.
The
I
A
feel like
team.
if you can do those things and accept, admit, appreciate, and apologize, you're on your way
Hmm.
to a better you and a greater path. So thank you, Ian, for sharing with us today. I'm not finished yet because we do have this thing called rapid fire, but I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing. It's not easy for people to say, oh no, I mean, your doctors told you were depressed, but to be able to be like, okay, yeah, I was, and to go get the help that you needed,
Hmm.
that's major. And I just want to applaud you for seeking that help. But also,
You.
you were saying since 1999, you were dealing with health challenges with your wife on and off. Most people can't even deal with that for 2 years, or more or less 25
Yeah.
years. And so it brings me to this thought and this point that we're on this journey called life, and we don't know how long we are going to be on the journey or what the destination looks like for us. But
Hmm.
whatever it is that you are experiencing, whatever your journey is, or whatever your quote unquote health challenge might be, it might not be a health challenge, it could be a different type of challenge that you are experiencing. Don't quit and keep going. Ian's story is one that, even though his wife has been having health challenges since 1999, and they told her she wasn't going to live multiple times, that she wouldn't live to be past 40, and she's now 45. I know that only because I know the story, and we talked about it previously, and just following along with what he was saying. What if she would have gave up in her 20s? What
Yeah.
if she would have said, you know what, I'm checking out? And so, yeah, you might have gotten that DNF. You might have not been able to get to that start line, but you have life and you can still fight.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So I'm encouraging you during this month of December as reframing life and the gift that we get to try. No matter what, this is a gift and we get to do this.
Absolutely. I was going to say that. Yep.
Like
We
we get to do this. So don't give up on you. Don't give up on your family. Strike that balance. Make sure your A's are in line, your acceptance, admittance, apologizing, and appreciating. And everything will be okay because everything does work out the way it's supposed to work out.
Mhm.
It does. Now, it may not be on our timeline because, we be having
I
timelines and
know.
such,
I
but
tell you.
it works out. And so, with that, Ian, I want to give you a final thought to share with us final thoughts, especially for those who are just starting out on their journey. And then we'll go into rapid fire.
Okay. My final thought is that um, we each have it, as you rightfully said, it may not be medical, um, whatever it may be that didn't work out. It's really never giving up of your dream, um, your hopes, whatever it is that you have decided that you want to accomplish. Don't allow the setbacks to make you quit. And I speak that from a place where I was. I had quit on myself. I gave up, didn't think that any of this was possible. But I have come to learn that um, with having the right people around you that's encouraging you, um, just trusting and believing, listen to the people that are encouraging. Because for me, it really was there. I just thought that they weren't being truthful to me. But I I've gotten to a place where I'm learning, because I'm still learning. I'm not 100% there, but I'm learning that it is possible. I can do hard things again. Um, and I I have this for those, but I'm religious, right? But I'm always telling myself that God has allowed me to get to a certain place to not just abandon me. So even though I may not get there on the first try or the second try, there's a reason, there's a greater good. I believe that all things are working together for my good. So there may be a lesson along the way that I wouldn't have gained on one try, second try, that he says, Ian, I need for you to learn this. And you're so hard-headed, you know, right? It says you can't pray for patience without having to go through something. So he, our ways are not his ways, and I'm learning to accept and allow myself to be that clay in his hands and understand that there is a greater purpose that he may have for my life. So trust the process, not just with your coaching, but for who you believe in. Allow yourself to be used, and it will be for good.
Well, we can't technically pass the offering plates, but I think a good amen goes right there. A good amen goes right there. All right, rapid fire.
Yes.
Um, I'm gonna just start here. Favorite artist?
Oh my gosh. Uh, oh my goodness. I love everything so much. Like gospel, reggae. No. Um, favorite artist is Ty Tribbett.
Okay.
I know that wasn't so rapid. It's like I'm trying to go between all the genres. I'm like, oh my
I'm
God.
scared to ask your favorite song, but what song did you play on a repeat when you worked out during this training block? Let me be specific.
Um, so in training, this time around, I actually didn't listen to music that much. Um, but there, oh my gosh, because I don't know the the artist, um, but oh my gosh, it is but essentially the song, right, was I think it was Imagine Dragons, right? And but it's talking about um oh, I want to tell you this so much because the words um really really kept me going when I was oh, whatever it takes. Imagine Dragon, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. Whatever.
Right, right.
Okay,
Because
okay,
I
okay.
love the adrenaline flowing through my veins.
Okay. Okay. All right, whatever it takes. I actually like that's a good song. Um, are you a transition minimalist, Goldilocks, where everything has to be just right, or kitchen sink?
Everything has to be just right.
Okay. Um, do you prefer T1 or T2? Which do you prefer?
Oh my gosh. T2 all the way.
Okay. Wetsuit or no wetsuit?
No wetsuit.
Hmm,
Yes.
interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. Uh, triathlon bike or road bike with aero bars?
Triathlon bike.
Okay. Gels or real food for nutrition?
This time around, real food. Something changed. Yeah, gels wouldn't do it for me this time.
Interesting. Interesting. Swim, bike, run. Rank them in order of preference.
Run, bike, swim.
Okay. Um, taper. Love it or hate it?
Mm, that's a good one. Um, I hate it, actually. I
Oh,
do. Because I feel like it's not enough. Training is not enough. I need more.
that's good. Um, do you prefer to race in extreme weather or ideal conditions?
Um, ideal conditions. So, and the reason is that now things have changed for me where I can't allow my body to overheat. So before I hated the cold, now I have to embrace the cold a little bit more, um, for kidney function reasons. Yeah.
Okay. And we do not let anyone leave the podcast without answering this question.
Okay. Oh no.
Do you pee on the bike or get off and take a proper pee break?
I pee on the bike. I do. I do. Although in California, I took a proper pee break, but this is the only race. And it was because I was in this mindset of like, I'm out here not to win anything. I'm gonna I was even trying to chat with people at the aid stations. That's how right. Um
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you so much, Ian, for coming and chatting with us, not just for one part, but for two parts. Thank you. We have this saying on Try Beginner's Luck whenever you try beginner's luck, you always win. Sorry, as I'm moving my camera. So whenever you try beginner's luck, you always win. I had to say that again because you truly do. And so we want you to keep getting out here and winning, keep trying, don't quit. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow. You can listen to this on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube. So we do have YouTube where you can view this, which I think is going to be pretty entertaining. But be sure to like and subscribe there and tell your friends about us. That's it for us today. We are out. My name is Mashonda Shines, Mashonda Miles. My name is Mashonda Miles, also known as Mashonda Shines, and we are out. Peace. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
We're
Bye.
good this time. We're really leaving. We're leaving. Bye. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode. We need your help so we can continue to try at TBL. So for more information on where you can find and subscribe to this podcast, visit www.trybeginnersluck.com. And don't forget, whenever you try beginner's luck, you always win.